What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to break down 5 buy lows and 3 sell highs for week 5 of fantasy football. As you guys know, every Wednesday, I break down some trade targets for you guys to go after in your fantasy leagues. We're now a month into the season. We got some real data, some real understanding of what these players are going to be. So we're going to break down some of the guys that you can get for a discount right now. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, leave a like down below, comment any of your trade questions down below, and subscribe if you are new around here. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so the first guy that we're going to talk about was actually the 101 in drafts in Jonathan Taylor. People are really sounding the alarm for Jonathan Taylor. He's had a couple bad games in a row. But the reason I'm buying into Jonathan Taylor is quite simple. We know what we got here. We know Jonathan Taylor is an elite running back. We know he has an elite workload. As you guys can see on the screen, he's like an 80% snap share running back. He gets all the carries, more routes than most people think. He gets all of the inside the 5 work. He gets all of the short down and distance stuff. The only thing he doesn't get really is 2-minute drill work that goes to Nyheim Hines. But his lack of performance in fantasy really just comes down to him not playing at his best and the Colts playing poorly overall. Now, there is no real rationale that I can give you for why I think he's going to be okay. I'm just simply betting on talent here. I think he's a great buy low because I know with certainty that he's an elite running back, and I think this Colts offense will eventually figure it out. They got a new quarterback. Taylor's not playing at his best. Once those things start to come together, maybe they'll start playing at a higher level. I don't think that's a guarantee, but I am going to bet on the talent of Jonathan Taylor. So if you guys can get Jonathan Taylor right now for some of the prices that he's going for, if you could package 2 running backs together like Ezekiel Elliott and Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce, guys that are like RB2 level guys to get up to a superstar like Jonathan Taylor, go ahead and do it. You guys can see Jonathan Taylor was traded for using Adam Thielen, Najee Harris, and Carson Wentz. Package a 3-for-1, random guys together to get up to a Jonathan Taylor type. Derrick Henry is another guy that you can use. Package him with somebody else to get up to Jonathan Taylor. Rashad Penny, also another guy that is probably a good option to use to sell high and get to Jonathan Taylor. So he is a guy that I'm absolutely going after. I'm just believing in the ability. I think he's going to turn things around. Chris Godwin, the next guy that we're going to talk about, definitely a more risky acquisition because of his injuries so far this year. We know he's coming off of the ACL tear. He's had a hamstring injury in week 1 against the Cowboys, and it also looked like he hurt a shoulder on Sunday Night Football. But this offense operates entirely differently when Chris Godwin is out there. He's the Jenga piece. Everybody always freaks out when the Bucs don't have like a Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type for Tom Brady, but that guy is Chris Godwin. He has been that guy for a long time, and Godwin, when he's in the lineup, and not leaving early, this is a 30.5 point per game scoring offense. We know that the Buccaneers, when Godwin is out there, are going to be an elite offense in the NFL. They have guys coming back healthy now. Mike Evans is back. He's not suspended anymore. Chris Godwin is back and healthy. Julio Jones was even back out there. Leonard Fournette isn't dealing with anything. They lost the game this past week against Kansas City, but they passed at a much higher rate. They scored over 30 points, and Brady was over 8 adjusted yards per attempt for the first time this season. So I think we're going to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense that we were promised coming into the year. And right now you can get Chris Godwin because of that uncertainty due to the injury. Especially if you guys are 3-1, 4-0 type of teams, you can go out and get Chris Godwin for Ramondre Stevenson or for Damian Harris or for Devin Singletary or Rashad Penny or Miles Sanders or, Diontae Johnson or Robert Woods. And I'm going to talk about Diontae Johnson in a second, but a guy like that, you can tier up to a guy like Chris Godwin because I think we're talking about a bona fide locked and loaded mid wide receiver too. Once he's on the field, once he's fully healthy, he gets targets. That's what he does. He's a 10+ target per game type of guy with Tom Brady when he's been fully healthy. Mike Evans is going to get the high value targets downfield and in the red zone, but Chris Godwin is the space eater. He's the guy that gets all of the third down targets and stuff like that. So definitely be sending out offers for Chris Godwin right now. A awesome buy low in fantasy. J.K. Dobbins, another guy that we're going to talk about here. A little annoying that J.K. Dobbins punched in 2 touchdowns this past week because it's going to make him more difficult to buy low because people, especially more casual leagues, are going to see the fantasy production and be okay with just holding on to him. But the important thing that we want to talk about here with J.K. Dobbins is the usage. And I think in more sharp leagues, people will be a little bit more hesitant on J.K. Dobbins because they're probably aware that running backs are usually not good coming off of ACL tears. They're probably aware that a 50% snap share running back is not necessarily what we want to see. But we saw 18 opportunities, including 4 targets for J.K. Dobbins this past week. And the draw for why I was always high on J.K. Dobbins, you guys know if you've been following this channel for a long time, the reason I was high on J.K. Dobbins is because, number one, I believe in his ability. He's a great talent. He was my RB2 coming out in 2020. He has breakaway speed. He's a great athlete. And so far this year, he's avoided a tackle on 42.3% of his touches, which is 8th in the NFL right now. So this is a dude, despite coming off of an injury, who's a great player. And secondly, he gets the high value touches in the Ravens offense. The Ravens do not run the ball with Lamar Jackson in the red zone. They run the ball with running backs. And J.K. Dobbins showed his rookie year and so far this year that he's been able to take hold of that role. And he's also a great receiving back. He was efficient as a receiver his rookie season. He's been efficient as a receiver in the limited work so far this year. He's the best receiving back Lamar Jackson has ever had. So even though Lamar Jackson isn't going to throw the ball at a high rate to his running backs because he's a mobile quarterback, J.K. Dobbins can carve out a solid receiving workload, in my opinion. He is in the ramp-up period right now for another 2 weeks, according to a fantasy doctor, Deepak Chona, on Twitter. He thinks that you should get ahead probably of J.K. Dobbins because he's going to be at a full workload by week 7. And once he gets to that 60-70% opportunity share type of workload, this backfield will be J.K. Dobbins, and he will not give it up. He'll be a top 15 running back in people's minds. And right now, because of that uncertainty, because of his workload, because of the injury, you can get him for less than top 15 running back type of prices right now. You can get him for Jamal Williams types. You can get him for David Montgomery types, guys that are on the mend with injury. Damian Harris, like I said, Devin Singletary's, Rashad Penny's, dudes in that area of the rankings right now. Maybe Travis Etienne is another guy that you can sell high on as well. Diontae Johnson, the next guy that we're going to talk about here, he is a target hog, right? Diontae Johnson, definitely the type of dude that you want to be targeting in trades because he's getting alpha wide receiver 1 usage. The only issue that Diontae Johnson has faced so far is, number one, he's been dropping passes, but number two, he has been dealing with Mitch Trubisky's lackluster quarterback play. Mitch Trubisky has only thrown 2 touchdowns this year and was 27th in net yards per attempt with 5.3 in the NFL. So Diontae Johnson, despite getting this elite usage, right, 100% of the routes nearly, 30% of the targets, 33% of the air yards, 20% of the end zone targets, 26% of the third down targets. That stuff gets upgraded now with Kenny Pickett. And I didn't think I would say that because I was not super high on Kenny Pickett as a prospect. But in his limited action, he at least seems to be an upgrade over Mitch Trubisky. I don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the league necessarily. But if we take a look at the New Orleans Saints, they rank about league average right now with 6.5 yards per attempt. They have 5 passing touchdowns on the season between Andy Dalton and between Jameis Winston. Do I think that Kenny Pickett can be that good? Yes, I think he can be about a league average quarterback based on what I've seen from him so far. He averaged like over 9 yards per attempt in the limited action that we saw from him in week 4. And if Kenny Pickett is better than that or any good in general, then Diontae Johnson will feast because he gets elite alpha wide receiver 1 usage. We saw him be a wide receiver 1 last year in fantasy with Ben Roethlisberger. I do think Kenny Pickett is enough to support Diontae Johnson's fantasy value. And right now you can get him for Gabe Davis. You can get him for Terry McLaurin. You can get him for Jerry Jeudy. You can get him for guys that I think have lower ceilings than Diontae Johnson, given the target outcome that we've seen from him. Now we get into the final trade target that we're going to talk about here, and that is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is coming back from injury, most likely in week 6. So he's not going to play in week 5, but I expect him to be back in week 6. This is probably only for those of you that are 3-1 or 4-0, and your team is very well set up. And you've gotten to 3-1 or 4-0 with a Geno Smith, a Kirk Cousins, a Russell Wilson, a Trevor Lawrence, somebody that is like a streaming caliber, low-end QB, 2 type option, because if you can get Dak Prescott right now for a discount, then that solidifies your quarterback position. A lot has changed since week 1. We have CeeDee Lamb now looking like he's taking that third year's leap. He's taking that third year step to be the alpha of this offense. Michael Gallup is back from his ACL tear. Dalton Schultz is also back from the injury he suffered in week 1. Dak Prescott has the ability to come back into this offense and be a top 6 fantasy quarterback the second that he has full control of this offense with the guys that he has at his disposal. Take Carson Wentz, take Geno Smith, take Tua Tagovailoa, take Russell Wilson, take Trevor Lawrence, whoever you've been using at quarterback, and package them with a bench piece, package them with Brandon Ayuk, package them with Darrell Henderson or Damian Harris, whoever, somebody in that vein, and go after Dak Prescott to help solidify your quarterback position, because I do think he is going to be a great option once he gets back on the field in the Joe Burrow range, in the Tom Brady range, in the Patrick Mahomes range at his high ceiling range of outcomes. So let's get into some of the sell highs. I already touched on it, so I'm not going to dig into him too much. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I've been talking about as a sell high for like 3 weeks in a row now. He's still a sell high. His usage is not great, but he is scoring fantasy points. So you can probably sell him for a very, very high type of player. You can probably get, Alvin Kamara types or, Leonard Fournette types in package deals involving Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Also think Travis Etienne is a great sell high right now because we saw the Jacksonville Jaguars playing from behind, which is why I think a lot of people will gravitate towards Travis Etienne's usage from this past week. But I do think this is James Robinson's backfield. I think the reason Travis Etienne was more involved this past week is because James Robinson is the early down guy and the Jags were playing from behind. And I think this is probably relatively an average team, if not a little bit better than that. So I don't think they're going to be playing from behind very, very often. The Seahawks wide receivers, though, is the first major guys that I want to talk about with Tyler Lockett and with DK Metcalf. Now, they're still solid options, right? I think DK Metcalf is a mid wide receiver 2, maybe a back end wide receiver 2. Tyler Lockett is a solid wide receiver 3 type, but the Seahawks offense is bound to regress a little bit. And the reason I'm trading these guys is because I think that darker days are ahead for them. Geno Smith right now is currently the number 1 graded quarterback according to PFF. We're talking about a guy averaging over 8 yards per attempt who's a journeyman quarterback. He's been on 15 different teams. Eventually, he's going to cause these guys to be more inconsistent. He's not going to play at this level forever. I know Geno Smith looks really good right now, but he's still Geno Smith. I expect him to probably regress a little bit. And when that happens, this offense is not going to be nearly as good. And I think the reason that I want to sell these guys now is because they just had a 93-point outing against the Detroit Lions. That game was a huge shootout, back and forth, and I think you can use that as leverage to get to a Chris Godwin using DK Metcalf, to get to a Michael Pittman using DK Metcalf, to get up in a package deal, maybe to get to Jamar Chase with DK Metcalf, or use Tyler Lockett to get up to a Diontae Johnson or somebody in that territory of wide receiver. Don't sell these guys for mid RB2 types like you guys might be able to see on the screen. Don't sell DK Metcalf for Miles Sanders or Kareem Hunt or anybody like that. But if you can get up to better wide receivers or better running backs at the back end, like Jalen Waddle types or, Devontae Adams or Jamar Chase in package deals, maybe use these guys to get up to DeAndre Swift or Alvin Kamara. I think those are great trades to make because people are expecting the Seahawks offense to be at a certain level because they're playing well right now, but I don't think that level is going to continue for the rest of the season. So now let's get into a couple more sell highs, and these guys are both in the same vein. They're mid RB2 type options. Miles Sanders, I usually sell high on running back 2s after big weeks in general, but Miles Sanders saw a big workload last week, due in part because Boston Scott was out with a minor rib injury. I think he'll definitely have weeks similar to the one that we saw from him this past week, similar to a Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he plays in a great offense. But this offense runs through the passing game. It runs through A.J. Brown. It runs through Devontae Smith, and it runs through Dallas Goedert. And I think Miles Sanders has this rosy perception on the market right now because he plays in such a great offense. But I do think we're going to get the same old inconsistent Miles Sanders that gets nicked up with hamstring injuries all the time. And I think you can sell him at a very, very high cost right now. And get up to, guys like you can see on the screen right now. Somebody sold Miles Sanders straight up for Jamar Chase. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to do that, but can you sell him for Marquise Brown? Can you sell him in a package deal for Mark Andrews or for George Kittle? Definitely, I think you can do that. So if you have Miles Sanders, try and get up to a better option. Same goes for Melvin Gordon. Now, Melvin Gordon should also be a solid RB2. Javonte Williams is out for the season. We know that Melvin Gordon should be a 15-plus carry type of running back. The issue with Melvin Gordon and why I expect his market value to be higher than what I actually think he's going to provide for your fantasy teams is, number one, this offense still stinks, and it looks like it's not going to get much better with the way that the play calling is and the way that Russell Wilson is playing. Number two, Melvin Gordon is around 2,000 career touches, so he has a higher risk of injury. He's also not going to be more efficient because he's an older running back with all these touches under his belt. And number three, the Broncos showed that Javonte Williams was the pass-catching running back, and when Javonte Williams went out, Mike Boone was the pass-catching running back. So even though Mike Boone is not better than Melvin Gordon, I'm not saying that, but he is probably going to take away the third down work, the long down and distance work, the 2-minute drill work, all the routes from Melvin Gordon, and we have a semi-washed up 2-down grinder in a Met offense at best. So Melvin Gordon, to me, cash out on the high perception, previously productive fantasy running back, now thrusted into a big workload because Javonte Williams tore his ACL. While we have this unknown factor surrounding Melvin Gordon, you can use him in an easy 2-for-1 trade. If you have Melvin Gordon and a guy on your bench that's a solid wide receiver too, a guy like Tyler Lockett, who I just talked about, you might be able to use those two guys to get up to Jamar Chase or to get up to Devontae Adams or to get up to Jalen Waddle or to get up to a true difference-making running back like Leonard Fournette or Joe Mixon, somebody like that. I am definitely making trades like that. Trade your 2-for-1 depth pieces for a superstar to get into your starting lineup, and Melvin Gordon is the perfect guy to go out and try and make trades like that with. So if you guys enjoyed this video, like I said, Leave a like down below. Let's try and get this video to 500 likes if we can. Really appreciate all the support you guys have shown to us. Comment any of your thoughts down below as well. If you comment in the first day that this video is live, I will 100% get to your comments. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. If you leave a like and if you leave a comment, you better be subscribed as well. Costs you nothing, and we really, really appreciate it this time of year. So with that being said, peace out, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Why you need the